Okay. Okay. So again, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us. This is the second part of the Women in Public Life series. So this webinar series will look at the journey of our three special guest speakers and what they took that led to their successful achievements. This series will show women a range of opportunities in public service and how to accomplish them. So again, welcome. The first person who will be up to speak is going to be Commissioner Director Shanel Robinson. A few things about Shanel. She's been on the Commissioner Board since January of 2019. She's also been on the Franklin Township Council from 2015 to 2019, Franklin Township Financial Oversight Committee, Housing Authority, Public Safety Committee, and many others. Let me tell you, Shanel, your bio is extremely long, so it would take 10 minutes just to read it. She's also part of the New Jersey State Planning Commission, Somerset County Democratic Black Caucus, and she's also a veteran of the U.S. Air Force Reserves and worked as an avionics specialist. Shanel has 3 children and 3 grandchildren, and currently works as a technologies manager in information technology infrastructure library. Did I get that right? I believe so, right? So Shanel, welcome. And we also have on our call Assemblywoman Linda Carter, our very own Wonder Woman. And we also have Deputy Director Sarah Suey. So let's start with Shanel, only because Shanel has a previous engagement. And so Twee, go ahead and take it away.
So thank you, Commissioner Robinson, for speaking with us. And our first question is, was there a pivotal moment that compelled you to get involved in politics, and who influenced you?
Pivotal moment, I would have to say there were 2 things around the same time. One was an OSHA class that I had taken at Rutgers. I got mad because I saw corporations getting away with people losing life and or limb. And all they were getting was a slap on the wrist, not fixing the problem, but paying money to kind of get out of the issue or out of the problem, but yet it's going to happen to someone else. So by nature, I'm a problem solver. I believe in doing service and working for others and advocating for others. And so that was one pivot point. The other pivotal moment was there was an incident, a high school incident. They labeled it as a high school melee in Franklin Township. And as diverse as Franklin is, the only people that were arrested coming out of a homecoming dance were people of color. And so I saw where leadership, the Human Relations Commission, and the police department and the school administration failed the students. And so they did not stand up for these students who were all A and B students, honor roll students, but yet they just stood by the wayside and allowed the process to railroad them that would negatively impact their lives. So I worked on an ad hoc committee with the Board of Education. I worked with the leadership in place and council at the time, and also was on an ad hoc committee to replace the now superintendent, which is Dr. Ravalli. And so I just showed them different ways from my perspective as a taxpayer and a parent of ways they could have done things better or differently. And so some of those policies are in place as part of my participation. And I knew there's something that I could do. It was just a matter of a work-life balance to actually put my hat in the ring and get it done.
Thank you. What impact were you hoping to achieve when you first began? And did your priorities change once you were elected?
Some of the things I wanted to achieve going into this was being a different type of leader. That has not changed. Being able to be accessible and responsive to people. I think that leadership in government had gotten away from that. And so we've been a great example of what it means to actually be there for the people and with the people. And so that has been my goal, because I just felt that leadership just failed at doing their job. and they were just maybe rubber stamping or going with the status quo and actually not being effective leaders. And so that hasn't changed.
And the third question is, what are the biggest challenges associated with your political career? What advice would you provide people who are interested in doing this work?
The biggest challenge is not having enough hours in a day. There's so much work to do. And certainly we can't do it all, but as women, sometimes we act like we're super women and Wonder Women. And we try to do it all. I think we have what it takes to be great leaders to lead this world, let alone anything else that we set our minds to. And so that is the challenge, not having enough hours in a day. But certainly challenges are opportunities. And it's an opportunity to actually show what we're made of, actually display what true leadership looks like. It also gives an opportunity for us to, I don't want to say, for a lack of better phrase or words, right some of the wrongs when people are not trusting of government and people in government. And so we have an opportunity to change that narrative. And we've done just that. And the advice that I would give is stay true to who you are, stay humble. This industry can make you cynical. But at the same time, if your heart is in the right place, then you're going to continue to fight the good fight. So I just say, just stay humble and continue to fight, no matter who, no matter what. Keep fighting.
I see people nodding. That's really good advice. Yeah. And then the last question is, women have been making strides, but they are still underrepresented in all levels of government. What do you think needs to change in order to see a more equitable environment?
We need to continue to stand together and stand up, and speak out. Nobody can silence us. We have to make sure that we have a bigger voice in the rooms in order to make the decisions that are right for the people in which we serve. Even if that means kicking down the door.
Do you have an example of kicking down the door?
Sarah and I. People weren't expecting us, even as a political party, to take control or even to do the things that we've done. It was always a naysayer in the room. And so we just set out to make sure that we proved them wrong, and that we were not the status quo, that we were bigger, bolder, badder in getting the job done. So that example would have to be our race in 2018. And she often says it, I'm not gonna steal her thunder, but give her the credit. We made the impossible possible. And just so we're leading by example.
That's great, thank you. Well, we rushed through your questions so that you would have time to go to your next.
Well, thank you so much. I may be back at some point, but thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share my story and to answer any questions. So I may be back, but if not, thank you so much, and keep fighting. Never give up.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Robinson.
Thank you.
We hope to see you back, and if not, good luck this year and good luck with your event right now.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, welcome to those that joined us a little late. Commissioner Robinson had to go first due to a previous engagement. So we have also on now Assemblywoman Linda Carter and Deputy Commissioner Sarah Suey. So at this point, let me just say a few things about Sarah. Sarah Suey is scroll down here. Commissioner Deputy Director Sarah Suey. She has been a Somerset County Commissioner since January of 2019. Her background includes Somerset Hills School District Board of Education from 2015 to 2018. Her affiliations include the Somerset County Business Partnership and, of course, the Somerset County Commission of Staffs of Women, among many others. She is a lifelong resident of Somerset County and has an MBA in commercial real estate and also in real estate development. I am also going to introduce to you, say hello, Sarah, first. Okay, and I'm also now going to introduce you to Assemblywoman Linda Carter. And Linda Carter is New Jersey's own Wonder Woman. And she represents Legislative District 22 since spring of 2018. She serves on the Science, Innovation, and Technology Committee, Telecommunications and Utilities Committee, and she also is the vice chair of the Law and Public Safety Committee. She has spent almost 20 years working in public service in Plainfield as a city councilwoman and also as a commissioner of the Union County Board of Commissioners, once called the Freeholder Board. She has a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration and a Master of Science in Management and Information Management from Stevens Institute of Technology. So welcome, ladies. Thank you very much for joining us. So Twee is going to ask you a series of questions, and it's going to be this. Now we're going to do it more round robin. Twee, I would say go to Assemblywoman Linda Carter first, and then to Commissioner Sarah Sui. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, and welcome everyone.
And since we've had more people join, then we won't mind repeating the questions either. So, all right. So the Assemblywoman Carter, the first question is, was there a pivotal moment that compelled you to get involved in politics, and who influenced you?
I never ever considered well, good evening, everybody. I hope everybody's having a great day. Let me start there. I never considered myself, even growing up, to be somebody to get into politics, but I also never considered myself to also be an educator. And lo and behold, I am both. Go figure. You know, sometimes the stars align and they have them aligned for something totally different than what you have planned. And I tell everybody I got into politics kicking and screaming because when I started, I was approached. And when I got approached, I was approached by a team that was running against the Democratic Party in the primary. And it was 3 days prior to the petitions being due. And I sat, I prayed, I thought about it, and I said, you know what? It's time for me to do this. And the reason why I was kind of back and forth was due to the fact that I had just gotten laid off from my job from AT&T after like about 14 years. They had consolidated, half of our department went. And I was one of those that said, you know what? See you, corporate America. Decided to go into teaching, but I also was contemplating moving out of state. And by moving out of state, I was like, you know what, guys, I'm not gonna be able to do this. It's like, just do it, just do it. It doesn't matter. We need you. We need it. Why? Why are you calling me? Why isn't there somebody else? And it's because of my commitment, my involvement that I had in the community. And then I had to think about it. Okay, I'm going to do this. Did I think I was going to win? No. But I said I needed to show the younger generation that we do need to have some change. And at that point, it's been 18 years. I was not in my 20s, but I'm not as old as I am now, in my 50s. So in looking at this, I was like, you know what? I'm going to put, I speak out enough. I know what I'm looking at and want to make some changes. And what better way to do that? So I said 3 days before now, okay, I'll do this. Went out, got the signatures, did it. I literally ran in a primary off of the line against an incumbent who was also off of the line, against also someone who had the line, who she and I, it was another female, we matched up 1-to-1. We were both lifelong members, born and raised in Plainfield, same age, both belonged to sororities, different sororities, but we both community oriented. and both knew our families were ingrained in the city of Plainfield. So that is the reason why I was like, you know what, she's got the line, she's going to win it. But you know what, we're going to make sure if you don't step up to the plate, you're never going to get either noticed or they're never going to hear you. So I said, I need to step up to the plate and I'm going to take a swing. Because if I just stepped up to the plate and didn't do anything, it would be no. And the person that was doing it is the current mayor of City of Plainfield, Mayor Matt, who he's like, Linda, you can do this. You know what, we're working. And I believe in a team and a family. And that's what we were. We were a team and a family, and we had a plan and we had a vision. And I believed in the vision that we wanted to move Plainfield in and do. And I won the primary. And I was like, oh, what do I do now? Oh my Lordy, I actually won this. So at that point, I said, okay, here we go. We're into it. And again, it was a time frame when I started a teaching job in Passaic 2 months prior to me getting sworn in as my council seat. So they all both worked hand in hand. And I was nervous about that, being a new educator, but it was something that really worked well. And only about another 2 minutes, I'll tell you guys this one. So then I moved up to asked to be a freeholder. I had to go, why? Why are you asking me again? I questioned it because I was not the typical person at that time. They're not trying to support females. They're not trying to support older individuals. When you have younger individuals, they were looking for an African-American male, young. I didn't fit any three of those. But when we had the conversations, and at first they questioned it, the party was like, not that. I said, we all have to be on the same page because we're a team. That's the only way it's going to work. And I knew that I wanted to be a freeholder, and I was a freeholder. I've never been a commissioner, even though it's called commissioner now. I was a freeholder. I said I wanted to walk into that, but it was a time where we needed to unify our party. We needed to unify everybody in Union County. And I was able to say, okay, as long as we're all on the same page and you're doing the same thing I want, because I knew I could make a difference. Then when Assemblyman Green passed away, unfortunately, I was asked again to step into and fill his seat. Did I ever think that I would be assembly? I thought about it, but the politics of what was going on, people were asking me to run for mayor. And I was absolutely, nope, not doing that. Nope, not doing mayor. But when they asked me to do that, I gladly stepped in to do that. And with joy, yes, they had to, again, twist my arm a little bit, but I need to make sure that they knew what my worth was. Because you're coming to me now for another seat. Why? Why are you backing me? And I want to understand. And believe it or not, it was all the time, these were men backing a woman. And that's not the norm. I came from corporate America. I came from the good old boys club. I came from an area where I would step up to them all having a meeting, be like, hey, what's happening? What are we talking about? Because too many men up in here. Because you know what? And my boss would look at me like I'm crazy. I said, I don't understand. I should have been in this meeting. And I would push myself into meetings. And it was very healthy, but it made them understood and started them opening their eyes. We're excluding certain areas and certain people and certain things. And it made them understand we needed to open and be better at viewing and not keep it to the same grouping. And it's the same thing that was happening. I wanted them to understand, listen, guys, you have a lot of men. And now, yes, women can bring something to the table because your eyes don't see the same as mine. So that is why I always stepped in and was like, absolutely, I can do this. And hopefully I'm doing a good job.
Commissioner Sui, can you tell us why you stepped up to the plate?
So I'm actually one of the odd cases where I was exposed to politics at a really young age. So I was 12 years old when my dad first ran for office. And, you know, most politicians, you bring your family, take photos, do that whole thing. But when I was 12, I was in the room and I listened to all the politicians get up and, you know, give their speeches. There was one person that got up and said that, you know, serving the community is literally just community service. And there's so many parts that it's actually important and how it impacts like every single person in the audience. So they made it so understandable to a 12-year-old that I said, well, that sounds like it's a lot of like really good work you're doing for society. And, you know, who doesn't want their potholes fixed and, you know, all that good stuff. So at that point, I was, you know, super excited to just do more of the community. So I always volunteered. Even to today, I don't see myself as a politician. I'm just serving the community. I think that's like a huge separation, as, you know, both Assemblywoman Carter and Director Robinson said, you know, it's about that hard work that we put in and that service side. We all didn't really want to be politicians. I think a lot of men in the industry, they do it for the title. They want another thing, you know, it's more about maybe like the power or, you know, adding something else to their resume. But we do it for the right reasons. And I think that if we stick together, we'll be able to go a lot farther. You know, at that point, I continued to volunteer. I actually served on the commission on the status of woman. I was appointed as one of the youngest members at that point. And then at 22 years old, I ran for the Board of Education. And what I thought was lacking there was that we didn't have any student representation. So the Somerset Hill School District, as many other school districts, you have many, you know, people to work with. So you have your parents, a few unions, teachers, administrators. You know, they say it's all your most difficult clients. So if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. And I thought they were missing a huge segment, which is actually asking the students about what's going on, because those are our boots on the ground that are the recipients of this education and all this programming that we're working on. So I, you know, put it out there to bring back a student representative on the Board of Education, and they come in and give us a report, and, you know, they would nominate someone through like a mini electoral process. And we brought that back. And it shed a lot of light as to what was really going on in the school district. And it's that element of transparency that, you know, Director Robinson and I, we still carry to today on the Board of County Commissioners. And, you know, always with a heart of service.
Thank you. Thanks. The second question for both of you is, what impact were you hoping to achieve when you first began? Did your priorities change once you were elected?
You want me to go first?
Yes, why don't we keep the same order?
Okay. What I was hoping to impact was to really change the old guard when I first started. But in changing the old guard, it was a matter of bringing efficiencies to our city, lowering the taxes, and trying to enhance our services. Now, when I say that, when I stepped onto the board for the city of Plainfield as a councilwoman, we had no plan to fix our roads. Our roads had not been repaired in over 20 years or more. And there's hadn't even been a road plan. And our over 70% of our roads when we did the study were in poor to poorer conditions, which is a lot, and which it was a lot in around our city. So I would say really my priorities were working collectively with administration to bring in a plan over a 5-year plan over time, so that we can really make sure we're efficient and effective, and putting the right priorities for everybody, and making sure we heard it from everybody what they want with services and all. Has it changed for me? No. I'm still service oriented. Like Sarah even said, I think the three of us model that in so many different ways of serving the community and getting solutions. What is the issue? What is the problem? Let's come up with the solution, but also putting it into a long-term plan. My role now as an Assemblywoman is very different than when I was on the city council or even on the Freeholder board. I'm now setting the policy, but my vision and my priorities are still the same. It's about equity. It's about fairness. It's about making sure that all are represented. Because as we're putting the policies in place and we're voting on them, we're making the laws. The Assembly is 80 people, individuals. The Senate is 40. That's 120 individuals putting policies in place for over 9 million people. Think about that for a second. So I need to take into consideration, it's not about me, and I tell individuals all the time, I may have issues with something personally, but I have to block that out sometimes because it's not about me. It's about my community. It's about Plainfield. It's about Union County. It's about the state of New Jersey. And when I look at our population and the diversity in all of our towns, I have to make sure that I'm bringing that lens to the table versus Linda Carter lens to the table. And when I'm voting on the policies and the practices and putting policies in place.
Thank you. That actually shed some light into the work that you do as an Assemblywoman. And Commissioner Sui?
So I just want to actually point out that last segment that Assemblywoman Carter mentioned is that we have to put our feelings aside and do what's best for the majority of people. And they say it's a thankless job. Absolutely. A lot of times you get accused for things that you didn't even do, and everyone wants to point the fingers, but it takes a lot of patience and just hands-on, just knowledge from working at this every day to be able to answer a person's question. So when I was first elected, I always said that, I didn't want to be a quote unquote politician, but I wanted to serve. And what does that all really come back to? And those are just my values as a human. I think that that's super important to understand about yourself before you even get involved with, higher level of like leadership positions. You have to make sure you know what you value, because it's so easy for people to try to pull you in different directions and to compromise those. And, I'm sure everyone's heard of a quote unquote corrupt politician. There's, and they do exist. It's unfortunate, but we hold each other accountable into a higher standard. I think that by nature, women have a tendency to take a step back and think about a lot of, more humanitarian values as well. It's not necessarily just a dollar. You can see past, just a budget, but we can actually see what that story is behind it. So I've always valued making sure that we have fiscal responsibility. And what that means is making sure that there's affordability to the quality of life that we have. It's not just, quote unquote, like giving out different services, but it's a combination of being able to have sustainable, a tax rate. So at the county, we kept the taxes flat for 2 years in a row, and we increased services. And we did that, very carefully. We're able to bring back more state and federal dollars than we did in the past. Director Robinson and I, what we ran on in 2018, making sure that we have transparency. We live streamed the meetings. We always believe in, looping people in and making sure that we're hands-on leaders. With a recent, catastrophe with the flooding, people they want to be able to access older leaders, but they don't necessarily know where to start. We all have, jobs and other priorities and family that really supersedes on a daily basis who your elected official is and what happens in that time of need. And you don't know where to go. So what we ended up doing is that we put on a pair of jeans, left the office, and we got our boots on the ground. And we realized that we needed translators in Manville. We realized that they needed cleaning supplies. The VFW needs an extraordinary amount of repair because that was the only center for those people to, have a place to congregate and get the resources that they need. So there's the type of leadership is very hands-on, and it's something that you can't do from an office, or as Dr. Robinson says, we're not leaders from the ivory tower. So, being hands-on and making sure that we're true to our values is, the most, consistent and important part of our jobs as leaders.
Thank you. You were ahead of the curve by opening up the meetings to the public, because then with the pandemic, all the towns had to follow suit. So that was very good. The next question is, what are the biggest challenges associated with your political career? What advice would you provide people who are interested in doing this work? Assemblywoman Carter first.
I don't ever think of things as challenges. I look at them more as opportunities. And it's opportunity to make sure that your time management skills are on point, that you understand and are partnering and reaching back. And I say that because of the fact that I'm an individual that I don't look at titles. You can be the governor, you can be the garbage man. It doesn't matter. Okay, we're all the same, we're individuals, and we all have our roles to play. But in that, the opportunities that I see are making sure that there's representation in all facets, making sure that the individual, the average individual, is their views and all are heard. And sometimes we lose sight of that. We don't take heed to the opportunities that are out there. I think the pandemic truly has opened a lot of eyes, and more than just the political arena, but just the eyes of everyday citizens, of how we have gotten hit so hard in dealing, and I come from education, that everybody, we say we have equal opportunity, but there's less equity in certain areas. So it's a matter of, it's not a challenge, but it's an opportunity for us as, again, a legislator, putting some policies in place and mandating and trying to help, that we're looking in and making inclusive. And sometimes that's really hard. My biggest opportunity, again, is not being able to help everybody that I can set out to help. There are just some individuals we have in my office, we are still battling with unemployment. We average probably 10 to 12 calls a day. And to some, you may think, well, you're there at least 7 hours. That's not a lot of calls. But it actually is when you're trying to help individuals who have not had any income for over a year, or 6 months, or 2 months, and individuals who live paycheck to paycheck. And that is what is heartening to me, because I don't have those answers. I'm the legislator. I'm not that office or that state department. And people come to our office thinking that, and we're trying to explain to them, we're going to take your information. We're going to push this and we're going to try to get it to the right person to take a look at what you have, because they're just as frustrated, even more. But it's heartening sometimes to hear some of those stories. But I look at it again, it's not a challenge, but opportunity for us to figure out how we can better the system and better the process, be more efficient, be more effective. And we do realize the fact that, guess what? Some of our systems and all that we have had, in the state of New Jersey, our infrastructure needs to be upgraded because it hasn't been done in years. And we're doing business, people are doing business very differently today than what they did 20, 30, and 40 years ago. But what advice would I give people interested in doing this kind of work? Be open. Understand that as long as you're doing it for the right reasons, and you're here to serve, then you will continue to do what's the best interest of those around us. If you're in it for notoriety or trying because you got a name or you think there's something else with this, that's not it. Because it isn't. You literally have to roll up your sleeves and be involved. I returned a phone call to somebody. One of my staff members is on vacation. And I returned a phone call yesterday. And she's like, "You read his email?" I'm like, "Yeah, he's on vacation. So I need to see." And you sent a thing and asked him to call. Well, he's not going to call you back for another week and a half because he's on vacation. She's like, "Is that really you?" And I'm like, "Yes, it's me. What can I do?" You know, and they're really shocked, but you have to roll up and be a part. She's like, "That's really nice of you to do that." I'm like, "I appreciate that, but that's not needed. But this is what I think we should be doing, because we need to get your answers." And it gives me an opportunity also to be speaking directly to them. But if it's something that you have to read your audience, you have to read your room, but you also have to understand that you can do what you can do. And I try to make it happen because we are problem solvers, but it's not going to be 100%. I wish I could do 100%, but it falls off because it's not dependent on me. It's dependent on some other things. And that's the honest truth. So yes. Over to you, Sarah.
All right.
And if you can use the same term, opportunities instead of challenges.
So I think I have a little bit of a different perspective because I'm technically like the youngest female elected official in the state. So with being the youngest in the room and also being a woman, you have a different lens and different things end up happening. So typically I realized that when I brought up an idea or a proposal, the more senior members on the board would always just try to shut me down. And it's not that the idea was bad, because I realized after a few meetings that my male counterpart just repeated the same thing that I said, and then someone else loved the idea. And I'm like, well, I think I said that like 5 minutes ago, but my voice wasn't really being heard. So, and I see some smiles because I'm sure this has happened to just about everyone on this call at some point in time. So you gotta love when that happens, but there's a way and there's a certain dynamic that you can't just bend when someone does something like this. And they may put some pressure on you. They may try to yell, or they will intimidate you in some way to try to sway you. Do not fold for that, because these issues are worth fighting for. Yes, you're going to go out on a limb. And I was terrified the first time I did it, going against like the more senior members on the Board of Education. But some of the other members, they said, I'm actually scared that, my little kid, Timmy, is going to, and I'm just throwing that name out there. Someone had, a kid named Timmy, don't take that personally, that I served with. but saying that they were going to have repercussions in the school district. But I was just a recent graduate and I really had nothing to lose in that sense. So if they wanted to come after me, there were no other people that they're really going to impact. So I was able to have that voice, and it takes time to get comfortable with actually standing by what you believe in and knowing when and where to say it. I think a lot of young people too that I've seen come and sometimes go a little quicker than they would have wished is because they didn't respect some of the ideas that people have experienced. So experience does matter. I respect all the colleagues that are in a more senior position than me. I don't care which side of the aisle they're on. If they have a good point, take a minute, think about it, process it, and then evaluate to see if that's a better way to go. I think a lot of people, they get excited to, just want to fight everything right away. And, I just admire their passion. But you have to know when, where, and how to do it. They say, even in like a marriage or any relationship, they say, sometimes it's the way you say it. So make sure the presentation of that is, noted appropriately. Maybe sometimes you play to a guy's ego. You tell them they're great in certain ways, and then you try to slide in something that you want to do instead. So, but there's just different things. And I always loved economics because it was more of a social science. So I have to understand the way that people think. It's not necessarily just cut and dry. And that's part of the industry. You have to figure out how to talk to people. So the advice to, or some opportunities that you could have, it really depends on how you present things. Try to make sure that it's serving the majority of people, because if you have the facts to support what you're looking to do, it makes it a lot easier. Your case basically presents itself. So, and as my mother always used to say, you catch more bees with honey than vinegar. So if you try to do it that way, and of course, if that doesn't work, you know what to do.
And I have to agree with what Sarah just said also. It's also having the data behind it. A lot of times we're getting up there and people are challenging us, but when you go back to challenge them or question them, it's like, can you show me what you're talking about? Show me the information, show me what you have behind it. And unfortunately, they can't give that to you. But you have to, if you have the data, you have to be able to give them that information too. And it's about transparency.
So don't let all the words get you down sometimes, because if you have a sister, a daughter, any grandkids that are coming up, make sure they have that proper education to know about some of these challenges. Give them the heads up, because they will face it. It's no surprise to any of us. And I can see by the heads nodding, saying, yep, I experienced that, or the good old mansplaining. So I'm going to go into one last story, but it was during my first year on the board. I was 26, and one of my directors, I wanted to sit down and I went through the budget. I was that weirdo who went through a binder about this high of like financial statements and went through each and every area, because I was like, there's obviously a problem here. Let me find it. Given my background, I'm able to do so with the proper skill sets. So going back to that information and having that behind you, I get into the guy's office. I'm with one of the other commissioners from the opposite side of the aisle, who had like a CPA background. And I explained it to him, and he said, you know what, that actually makes sense, Sarah. So let's go, speak to him together. And he gave me his long resume and said how highly qualified he was. And then it was time for me to speak, and he cut me off and he's like, hold on, Sarah, tell me if you can understand this. And I said, okay. 45 minutes later, and I said, let me know if you can understand this. And I gave him my laundry list of all the items in his budget, and he was very quiet after that. Long story short, if you have a case, you can prove it. And the truth kind of sets you free. So
tough situation there.
one of many.
And all of those tough experiences strengthen you for the next one. it allows you to know how to respond in those situations. So the last question is, women have been making strides, but they are still underrepresented at all levels of government. What do you think needs to change in order to see more equitable representation for women?
When I look at it, I struggle with this so many times because I look at where we were and where we're going and where we're at today. I think we have to continue doing what we're doing. We need to get more women in that are willing to do this, willing to step to the plate and support them. When you look at New Jersey and you look at the ratio of men to women, and then you look at the ratio of minorities and where, look at census data over the last 30 years. We have shifted from a mindset that it's only men. And now we're moving it to where we know we have women that are willing to step up to the plate, and we're getting them elected. We may not be getting them elected overnight and having the takeover, but we're getting them elected. We just need to continue to reach out to the women and let them know, if you take this on, we're here to help you. We're here to support you. Because we know women can do everything. We know women, we got it going on, okay? But they also you have your household. You have your family. And a lot of times, a lot of those responsibilities also fall on the woman. But in today's society, in today's world, there's so many different venues that, you know what? There are all these support systems. And then when we get those individuals elected, we need to continue to support them. And the biggest thing that I've always seen is we get them elected and all of a sudden, you don't have that support system that you had when you were trying to build up. And then it's always put on, well, you don't reach out to us, you don't say anything, we don't hear from you. Okay, but we're in a lot more meetings, we're in a lot more doing things and all over and managing our time. My biggest thing is, if we want more women in it, we need to give them the tools. We know that they have it. Let's push for them. And as we're getting them elected, let's keep those that we have women in office and just keep bringing along more and more.
All right, so I think it starts, when the kids are small. It's about education. You can have a little boy in the room and a little girl, and when they go into school, the guys, they think that they can do anything and that they're going to be the best, and they're all fighting and elbowing for like the first spot in line. The girls, there's a smaller percentage. So I was actually at an event over in Bridgewater a few months ago, and we have like an internship program that we do. So I announced it to a bunch of like high school to college age kids. And like the room was like, no, it wasn't like an actual room, but the area was divided because it was an outdoor event. So you had the boys and the girls, and all the boys, they were pushing each other, trying to get my contact information, posturing, saying I did this, this, and that. And then the girls are kind of just standing there, hoping to wait in line and get the attention of myself. And of course, being a woman, I'm like, you guys can wait for a minute. And I went to go speak with the girls instead. So, and, I ended up hiring one of each because, I do believe in like fairness too. And I made sure that it was a diverse group, because we have to be able to promote that. And I told the one girl, the reason why I was supporting her is because after she waited patiently from all the other girls too, she had the best resume out there, but I ran out of cards and I said, can I give you my cell phone number? that girl ran for her phone. She didn't walk over and hope I'd wait for her. She ran. And that effort meant to me that she's going to go above and beyond to help. And she cared about that job opportunity. A lot of times, women, there's actually like data that shows that we don't advocate for, higher pay. When I was going through all the interns, this one, boy ends up shooting me a text and says, "You pay at least $12.50 an hour, right? I just want to make sure, because if not, like, I'm not interested." The girls, they were grateful for the opportunity. And I think that's something too, not just with men and women, but it's also with first generation families. My mother came here from Ecuador, and I was always taught to be appreciative. So I made that same mistake. And I said, I was just so thankful to have like a job when I got out of college and an internship when I was in college. But did I make as much as my male counterparts? No. Did I try to challenge it? No. So it starts from day one. And then you're always falling behind, because when a guy asks for a little bit more and the woman says, "Thank you for the opportunity, and I'll show you how hard I can work," that's where the pay inequity really starts. And it's from, school and, what happens at home, and, telling someone how to advocate for themselves. And it's the way that you do it. So it goes back to communicating that and empowering one another. But you also can't tear each other down. I actually have seen more women try to come after me than men. Men have actually been more supportive in the workforce. What I think it's probably attributed to is because other women did that to them from a different generation. So they fought so hard to get where they were. And they thought, well, if they're going to have a woman, it better be me. This is my competition for that same category, for that same spot. Why would I want you around? And especially if you may be better than them. So I take it more as a compliment now. And it's just the way you process it, and, see it as an opportunity to do something else. And, sometimes, people are going to accuse you of things. Give them all the facts. Make sure to always have that with you, because people are going to attack. And, it's terrible to say, but I think we've all faced it. I've listened to a few women's panels lately too, and it's pretty consistent for, what we've experienced. And a lot of women, they don't take that leap to try to be a little more entrepreneurial too. If you have a family, if a guy tries to do it, you're like, yeah, let me support him. If you try to do it and you have a few kids at home, are you going to have that support right back? So make sure to think about this, at all points for any decision that you make, because it's all tied for, what you're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish. But please stop tearing each other down. Keep hiring, keep supporting. If there's someone that's, equal to or better, that's also a woman, go with the woman, hire them. So you worked your way to be in a position of power, use it. And that's the way, Director Robinson and I have led with all of our commissions. If you look at, even the Commission on the Status of Women, we represent Somerset County. The way that we look, the difference, throughout the entire age spectrum, we represent a good part of the community. And that's the way the board should look. Before, we lack diversity, and we have to represent all people. And that's not just on the government side, it should be on the private sector. And, whoever's not doing that, shame on you, because it's very clear to everyone else who has, a set of eyes and can see. So we have to do something about it. And sometimes you have to call them out to make them, see a little more clearly.
Thank you. Assemblywoman Carter talked about training, so I am sharing in the chat the Center for American Women in Politics. They are part of Rutgers Eagleton Institute, and the program is called Ready to Run. It's an annual program, and it's fabulous.
It is an awesome program. It really is. And it gives you a lot of insight. And listen, I don't know how to fundraise. I still don't know how to fundraise. I didn't have to do any fundraising until it became assembly. They will show you also those aspects.
It's a comprehensive training. And I took it to run for Board of Ed, which is a little bit over the top, but it was it was such an eye opener. So, and I'd like to thank both of you for your authenticity in your responses. It's just really clear that you are sharing your life experiences with us. And you can see from the chat that there's a lot of people appreciate your responses. So at this point, we have a little bit of time, and we're going to open it up for questions from anybody. You can unmute yourself and then ask the question.
I have a question. It's for both panelists. What if someone wants to get involved in community service, but not politics? What advice would you give? What avenue would you have them travel to do community service that's separate and apart from being a political elected official?
Say, depending on how far out you want to extend doing your community service, but there's so many things that you can just look at. And let me just take prime example. You know what? You may see right there in your town that you want to do something. Get a couple of people together, figure it out, and do it. And I say that because, and I know that's probably, you're like, well, that's pretty much a simple answer. We know, we didn't understand that. But sometimes that's as simple as it is. And I say that for this reason. We can talk it, we can think it, but we have to act on it. And it might be sometimes as simple as picking up the phone and saying, hey, listen, I saw that you were doing such and such. How can I help? What can I come and volunteer some hours? Or look at some of the schools, look at what some of the schools need. They always need something. And my biggest thing, and I'm going to be looking at this now moving forward, are our seniors. We have seniors in our community who get around less than what they were getting around before. So one of the things that you can also look at is to say, wait a minute, let me see if there's a senior something. I'm running to the store today that I can call up. Do you need anything? And I'm not saying you have to pay for it, but to say, listen, if you have some items that you need, I can pick them up. And then, you know what? Here's your bill. And work something like that out. Because they can't get around as much. Or it's a matter of just calling them up and saying, hi, how are you? Because they don't have that line of communication. But it's a matter of, you have an idea, and let's think about it. If it's something in your town that you see that is wrong, speak to your council members, speak to your commissioners, speak to your state legislators, and figure out how we can get it done. Now, does that say that, well, you have to take it on everything? No, it would be nice, but bring it to the forefront. Have that communication. Would you agree, Sarah?
Absolutely. So there's plenty to do. So if there's any volunteers, you can just email us directly. There are definitely, tons of leaders in our community that I would say really serve as great mentors, especially for the youth. I think people should put their phone down, put their heads up and actually serve, because the reason why I am the way that I am and I, continue to serve is because I volunteered at the senior center over in Bernardsville. And, it was a mile away, so I was able to walk and go there, volunteer. But the most important thing, that it actually probably helped me more than I helped them. And that's something about volunteerism that I think is just, immeasurable. When after, cleaning up and before the bus would take the senior citizens home as their first, like the only time of their day to get out of their house and have a social experience, which I think is, became even more clear during the pandemic. and for how we try to stay connected, especially for people that weren't as technologically savvy. And even with Zoom, it's not as personal as it would be when you're sitting down at a table speaking with someone, being able to give someone a hug. You know, there's so many elements there that are necessary. But I would sit down and I would play Uno with the senior citizens, and we would just talk. And the beautiful thing about being around seniors is that they have no filters. And they tell you exactly how it is and what to actually care about and what part they worried about. That was just complete nonsense. They wasted so much time caring about something that was just irrelevant. So they would say, honey, don't worry about that. And it's probably why I'm more to the point, but I don't waste my time. Those things made me extremely happy. And I think if anyone wants to volunteer, you could go to your senior centers. You have, you know, there's a lot of programs through, you know, faith-based leaders. So maybe it's one of the congregations in the area, but these people, they have lists of organizations, nonprofits that have different service events to participate in. But I encourage more of it. Actually, when I was on the Board of Education, there was a vote that was one of the first areas that I converted, you know, all the more senior members to side with me, because they wanted to eliminate a community service requirement. And I said, first of all, I don't think 10 hours is even enough for a year. And it's hard to get some people. And no, babysitting your little sister does not count. Like that is not real community service. So get out into the community, encourage more people to do it of all generations, because it's probably gonna better serve all of us as a whole.
Thank you, Sarah. Marietta, you have a question?
Okay, so you guys spend a lot of time helping other people. What do you do to recharge yourself and take care of yourselves? Shall we start with Linda? Can you hear me?
I try to breathe a little bit. I try to breathe, you know, but I also try to make sure I stay connected. I have a goddaughter who is 6 and her twin brother and, you know, all of them. So if I don't see them after a couple of days, I make sure that, okay, I show up somewhere. And I have a few other relaxation outlets that I refuse to say openly, but cha-ching, okay, I'm sorry. Those that know me know what that means. That's all. And I breathe.
Thank you.
Well,
I
on
make
that
y'all laugh a little bit. I figured I'd make you laugh.
How about you, Sarah?
So I actually love just being outside. I don't care if it's like 5 degrees or 105. If I just get outside for a little bit and leave the office and just go for a walk, even when I started off my career in banking, if I would get home at 11 o'clock at night and there was snow on the ground, I would go for a walk around the block, you know, just to clear my head and take a minute for myself when no one was around. And it's that little bit of me time where, you know, silence is actually appreciated after a day full of calls, and, you know, maybe it's service or maybe it's combination of work too. So, you know, I have my own consulting company now, so it's a lot of in-person meetings, and you do have, you know, have to always have that face on and always put that best foot forward. But sometimes on the inside, you don't want to put that best foot forward and you have a whole commentary going on. So when I'm out for my walk, I'm able to, you know, just relax and forget about all that. And I put my phone away and I just, you know, it's my me time. And I also enjoy cooking. So.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mary Elizabeth, you're next. You had a question?
Hi, yeah, I did have more like a comment, and that's to piggyback off of the person who had asked the question about volunteering and how do you get involved without necessarily being a politician. And I really felt what she was saying as far as you don't want something necessarily official, but you might want something that is more organized and more strategized. And I data mine a lot, especially on the NJ government systems. And for example, the NJEDA, they have all of these innovative programs and they have all of these opportunities to start platforms. But there's like a disconnect on how do you do it. For example, if you're saying, you know, we can help senior citizens, we can help them grocery shop. Why isn't there a platform where a senior citizen can go on that's not tech savvy, that can maybe make an order for Target or something, and someone in the community can pick up that order for them? You know, that requires technology, that requires a strategy, that requires policy and procedure. And I think that's where a lot of people, any little bit of good you do is good. But I think that's where a lot of people kind of feel that disconnect because they want to do something more impactful and more, a little bit more broadly. And I think if those platforms were available for women of color, Black women in particular, to connect with their communities in that way, because women, period, and women of color, they always put things back into their community. They just don't create for themselves. They always create, and then it always kind of trickles down to the rest of their community. But there are not official platforms to really connect, like official government platforms. I mean, anybody can start up a meetup.com and do whatever, but I mean, there really isn't an investment in that. So that's just my comment.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Linda or Sarah, do you want to respond to that?
Well, I would say I hear what she's saying, and she's definitely correct in reference to there are a lot of individuals who are not that tech savvy, and you know, social media is not their thing. But then you have to really think of the avenues that you can try to go through. Because some people do want to do volunteerism. And I know a lot of communities they have where the different boards and commissions which try to do their outreach and all. One, you can always try to reach out to those on your city level and try to, you know, build that relationship and come up with it. But also another avenue is the fact that, you know what, sometimes it is a matter of having those conversations and getting around the room and getting individuals. But while, you know, it comes something that you see that's important in the community to be able to do, then be able to elevate it where everything is not political. The political piece to me is always separate. And yes, there is, and I never think of me as a politician, but I am a politician. But there is this thing called service. We want to be able to do service in our community. How can I get it out there? What can I do? And I'm a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, and I do a lot of service through them. And that's one of the things that I truly love doing with my sisters. We figured out what we can do because like something every year we do at Richmond Towers, we have Trimetry. And even when, you know, the pandemic, we couldn't do it our traditional way, we still had it. But that's a whole group of us getting together, and I just do it. I don't go in there and say, well, I'm Assemblywoman Carter and I want to get this done. We can't, because I don't want to, and there are certain things that I don't want to bring my political aspect in, but hearing what you're saying, I fully understand that there is still that disconnect, and we have to work on it. We have to figure out that avenue to be able to bridge that gap, and try to figure it out. I show up over my senior building all the time, and I just go in there and I'm like, hey, how you doing? And I walk around and I just kind of see what somebody needs. Oh, what can I do? And then I leave. Or I'll talk to somebody that I have over there and they says, you know what, this person needs something. Okay. I don't commit to it, but if I can do and help it, I go and do that. But you have to put that effort forward. Now, I'm also hearing on the other spectrum that you want to be able to do some community service, but you don't want it to be political, but yet you still want it to be connected to the political piece of it. So the question is, you know, you have to really make sure what you really want to do and how far you want it to go. You can do stuff and still not make it political, but be able to do stuff, a community cleanup. Get a group of people, because you can't do that by yourself. And we can't do anything by ourselves. But if it's you just want to be able to do something, then you can pick like little projects. But if you want to make a bigger impact, then get a group of people together and put a plan together, and then figure out what partners you need to have involved in it to get it done. Something to me to do service. And listen, every town probably has a senior center. Connect with the senior center and talk to the director and say, hey, listen, this is what I have to offer. Do you have somebody I can connect with? And all, but it's just sometimes thinking out of that box and not making it overly complicated and keeping it very simple. That's all.
Sarah, anything you want to add?
Yes, actually. So in Somerset County, we actually have a Office of Volunteer Services. So if you go to our website, it basically gives a list, and it includes our wonderful senior centers and, you know, other areas. So like I led the health recovery task force, and there were tons of like nurses and like retired like physicians that wanted to volunteer at our clinics. So they went through this portal, and you get yourself registered, and then we tell you, you know, we ask you about when your availabilities are, and we match you up. So please look at the county website. If you literally just type in Google, you know, Office of, you know, Volunteer Services, then you can get all the breakdown and reach out. You can even come visit them over on Rehill Street in Somerville and speak to someone in person.
Thank you, Sarah. Also, thank you, Rihanna, for putting the link there. Very good in the chat.
Thank you.
And speaking of Rihanna, you have had patiently waited. What is your question or comment?
Hi, everyone. My name is Rena. I actually work for the county, so that's why I put the website in there. Sorry. So thank you, Assemblywoman Carter and Commissioner Soyi, for being here. I just wanted to ask, who would you say were your biggest supporters as you began your political career?
I can tell you my biggest supporter and also my biggest critic was my mother. I sat up there and I said, okay, I'm gonna do this. She says, you are absolutely stupid. You're crazy. What do you mean? But yet, she was just trying to open my eyes and be like, okay, did you look at, because I understood how my mother worked. Okay, like really? And she looked at it one way because she knew who I was going up against. And let's be real, I was at the time going up a political machine who she knew, and she knew all the friends because I've lived in this town my entire life. And then she was like, okay, you go for it. What we need to do? What we gonna do? Okay? How we gonna get this done? Because I know you can do this. You got all the skills. And then I would do, she's like, okay, then I found out probably a couple of years later, she would make phone calls. Yeah, don't mess with my child. Let me explain this to you. Really? You're like, got you, we ain't gonna mess with her. Like, don't have me go there. And I would be like, Ma, did you really? She said, yeah, when I saw him at this meeting, I was like, excuse me, you know that's my daughter. And it was really funny. So in the primary, again, I ran off the line, and my brother, we was working at one of the polling places. And Assemblyman Green at the time goes up to, hey man, how you doing? He said, I didn't know you were out here working. He said, yeah, I am. My sister. Your sister? Who's your sister? Let's say, C for Carter? He went, that's your sister? And I was running against his candidate. He had no clue. No clue. And it was so funny. My brother said, it was so sweet to see his face that day. And all, and it was like, yeah, that's my sister. Column C, not column A, column C all the way. It was hilarious. I said, Ricky, oh yeah, he had to see who I was. I had to make sure he knew that you were my baby sister. Okay, let's get it straight. But truly my family is my biggest supporters.
Excellent. Sarah, do you have anything?
Yes. So my father, he was like always the person, but he'd always be my, harshest critic too. So when I was first getting started, I was on the Board of Ed, and he was actually the mayor. So you could think of the municipal budget and the Board of Ed budget, and everyone's blaming each other for the taxpayers. So anytime, in a meeting, they were like, if there was only someone who could talk to the mayor, and everyone would look at me to get something done. I was like, oh, great, no pressure. But he always had my back, and I always would appreciate that. But sometimes I wanted to be able to fight my own battles too, because I wanted a name for myself, not just the mayor's daughter. And that was actually the title of the first newspaper article in the Burnersville News when I became a candidate for Freeholder. It says, mayor's daughter running for Freeholder. My name wasn't listed until like the second page. I was like, all right, it was a footnote underneath, to a man, but, and, they always have your back. So as Assemblywoman Carter mentioned, if anyone tried to mess with their daughter, you're going to get hell. So that's a beautiful thing about family. You could fight like cats and dogs behind closed doors, but when you get out in the public, you know who's got your back. So, my father, my mother, of course, was super supportive. She didn't know what we were doing half the time, but she knew we'd get home at like midnight and come home and wake the whole house up. So.
That's great. Okay, are there any other questions? We went a little long, but that's okay. We had some great conversations. Any final questions or comments? Okay, I would like to thank, first I'd like to also thank Assemblywoman and Wonder Woman Linda Carter for coming on tonight, and also Deputy Commissioner Sarah Suey. Thank you very much. And also Commissioner Shanel Robinson, Director Commissioner Shanel Robinson. Thank you very much. I also like to thank Twee for giving the questions and getting them set up. They were excellent questions, so great job, Twee. And thank you everyone for joining us. And please, keep moving forward and keep fighting, okay? Thank you so much. Have a lovely evening. Bye now.